So, did anything interesting happen today?
It was a
Slow news
boring
week.
day.
Slow. Like, I don't
Super
know how
slow.
we're going to fill an episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't. This is what, there are. The tricky thing about doing a podcast every week is you have to come up with things to talk about. And sometimes there's
Correct.
weeks where really nothing is happening. And so,
Silence.
and
Silence in the
that's
news.
honestly, I mean, that's kind of where we really start getting into, I feel like, the blue humor and,
Yeah.
kind of riffing on stuff because we have to fill up space, kind of like we're doing now, because there's nothing interesting to talk about this week.
We could though, like do like This American Life does and just talk about like old episodes for a while. Like every now and again, they just take a break and just like talk about an old episode. We could do that.
A retrospective?
Does that allow me to do my Ezra Klein?
Oh my
It
God.
does. It absolutely allows you to come in with all of the impersonation.
Well, if Dave's going to do Ezra Klein, I'm afraid I'll have to jump in with Sean Connery.
And
That
I'll
is
do
not
a young Ed
participating.
Mackey.
I have nothing because I'm not impersonations are not my shtick.
What
They're
if
not mine either.
what if to fill this week we just rewind and like we have one of us like run for office or something?
Well, that's a good idea.
That
Yeah,
that
but
could work.
Flo has said several times that she's not going to do it. I'm not
Yeah.
really in a place to do it. So
here we are.
I don't know. Shannon, do you have time? You have some free time right now to
Yeah.
do a campaign, right?
Shannon, not the mug.
I've got
Little
some
treat
extra
for our
Not the
time.
YouTubers.
mug.
Yes. Okay. Do you see this?
Now that's a treat for our YouTubers right there.
Yeah,
That's gonna end
exactly.
up on an Oppo ad flow.
So Flo, if you're listening to this and not watching it, Flo just held up a bottle of tequila that says
It's called
Mayor Tequila.
El
El
Mayor.
Mayor.
Yeah. It's called El Mayor.
It's called El Mayor.
El
Is
Mayor.
that El Mayor? My seeing ain't so good.
It is called El Mayor Tequila, I believe.
Well,
Well, no. So to kind of get into it a little bit here, this is a special episode because this episode it kind of represents the end of an era for the show, but the beginning of a whole new era for this town. So it is amazing. Obviously, everybody listening to this is excited. All of us are. But yeah, this is the end of the Voices Road for Dr. Flo.
Although we come to the end of the road.
Yeah, I can't believe it. So obviously Dr. Flo is running for mayor of Sacramento, as so many of you have been pushing for all these years. Where do we even begin this discussion, this intro?
I remember quite vividly the first time that Flo recorded an episode with us.
Beginning of the pandemic.
It
The
was
beginning of the
It
pandemic.
was before the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
just
in
as it was about to
February.
start.
Mhm.
Yep.
It was the three of you. I was at a wedding in Ohio, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I've got the best person. She's an epidemiologist. She can talk about diseases.
This we were still calling it like coronavirus all the time back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
SARS-CoV-2.
And we were going based on what we knew at the time. And, going back and like thinking about that episode is like we talked about what we knew at the time and how we were learning things every day. And a lot changed from that episode.
Oh yeah. But I mean, and like obviously it was so special to have, like, as horrible as the time
Yeah.
after that, the 2 years after, 3, we've had a lot of rough things happen societally, as far as like public health goes, all these things. And it was very hard for all of us being in our homes. But I felt so incredibly lucky that after that episode, Shannon and Skylar came to me and were just like, she is incredible. Like, that was an awesome interview. And I remember, once we all went into lockdown, we kind of all looked at each other and were like, should we ask Flo to be a host?
And the answer was
And I was
obvious.
oh my gosh, you all want me to stick around? That's so sweet.
I think my argument was like, you're not going anywhere. We know that none of us are going anywhere. So
Right,
like,
exactly.
You want to just
Yeah.
record a show with us?
Yeah. And then
And by the way, we're going to start doing 2 a week. Yeah.
Right.
And then we suddenly decided to do 2 a week. And Flo somehow made time in her schedule for that.
Yeah.
And hundreds of episodes later,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, throughout like some big stuff we've covered on
Yeah.
this show, so much local shit. Like,
Yep.
it's hard to even like think back
Yeah. I mean,
through
like,
all of it.
there's like moments I remember, like,
Totally.
with like gunshots and stuff, like not gun, well, like the helicopters and the flashbangs and stuff during the Floyd protests outside my window as we were recording, things like
Yep.
that. Like this, I don't know. When I look at the three of you, like those are the moments I remember the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about all of the things that have happened in the city that we've covered from, we've obviously done the deepest dive on homelessness, but we've done a lot on, public safety. We've talked a lot about the city we want to live in and the city we currently live in and our frustrations and our disappointments. And I hope for listeners, this has been an opportunity for them to feel like that they're heard and that they're seen, and that, there are other people out there who feel the same way and are grappling with these issues as well and are wanting things to be different. And that was why I said yes, because I was around, like Dave and I met actually shortly before. I know you all call him Kempa. I've never gotten into the Kempa thing. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
for
you
me.
never
Sorry.
really did that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every now and again, I'm cognizant of the fact that nobody calls you Dave, and I'm like, yeah, Kempa will do it. And I
think Skylar, don't you call him Dave?
I call him Dave. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
no,
It's okay.
I'm the only person
Yeah.
that calls him Kempa.
It's the two
No,
of you,
no,
and whenever I have a girlfriend, apparently.
And it's everybody else calls him Kempa.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of Daves. Let's just like, right.
Not for me.
Oh,
Shut up, Skylar.
There's only one Dave in our heart.
Flo's night. Okay.
I'm like, go on your phone right now. You have at least 6 Daves in your phone right now. I don't remember what I was saying.
That you have known Kempa for
Yes.
a long
Oh,
time.
yes, right. So I met Kempa like before he started Voices. And so it feels,
Same.
and I remember when this was like an idea of his about independent journalism and wanting to start this thing. And I remember when he launched it, like, so it feels almost a little surreal to have actually been a part of this for so long. And yeah, I really, I deeply respect this platform and building something. And I think I have to credit like you all for like reminding me that it's important to dream, because like this platform was literally built from nothing into this thing that exists. And I think it's just a good reminder to me always of like, that more is possible, right? Like, because I think we're like kind of going around in our lives and just kind of accepting the status quo in some ways, even if we think we're fighting. And, building a platform from like literally nothing into like this thing that people are tuning into and listening to and responding to and having very strong feelings about is really amazing. And so it has really been, an honor to have been part of this for so long. I don't know if I say that enough.
I think that's cool to hear. And I think what's really cool about this is the many iterations that Voices has had, and that what we have strived to do the last 3 years, the four of us, is sort of a co-op model, a consensus building model. And so like that dream that like, you know, I had when I was like, oh, I'm worried about a rise in anti-homeless rhetoric, like, you know, and I did this like live feed.
Yep.
And then like it turned into something so different because like of the four hosts, right? And like I don't know. I think about that as I think about you and your campaign and sort of your messaging of community, and that like I just think you bring a spirit of community and everyone's a leader to the shit that you're about to do.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of like all of my experiences throughout my life. Like, you know, I often talk about how like I really struggle to like embrace embarrassment, because any embarrassing experience that I have, I'm always like, yeah, but there are 8 billion people on the planet. Like I probably have this in common with like a billion of them, right? And so it's really hard to feel embarrassed when like you're in the good company of like a billion other people. And I think that's just that spirit of connectedness. And so I sometimes, you know, I'm just reminded that like building something like this and having people who are like, yeah, I agree with you and I want to dream and I think things can be better is so important, because I feel like so much of the society we live in tells us this is how things are, this is how they'll always be, just accept it. And like you're, in many ways, if you want something better and you are willing to fight for it, you are outcast and seen as unreasonable and impractical and immature and idealistic, and all of these like labels that we give to people who are basically just saying like, we are sentient beings on a floating rock orbiting a ball of gas that will one day burn out. And I just want to be the type of mammal that gets to lay by the water with my titties out, you know? And it's like, like I mean, right?
Exactly.
Like, I just feel like there's so much of this that, like, with good political will, we can change. And I was on this panel tonight, you know, and one of the questions was like, how do you make space for other people who are like you? And I think the question was intended to talk about like, how do you open doors for other people who maybe share your like gender and racial identities, right? And one of the things that, you know, has just been top of mind for me is like how much dreamers are maligned in our society for wanting something better and believing it's possible, to the point where we just almost like stamp out that instinct. And I think the dreamers are the most important. Like they're the level setters. They're the ones who remind us about love and about connection and about community. And they are ultimately the pulse of our community. And so, I mean, as much as I like strongly identify with being a Black woman, I also strongly identify with being a dreamer. And I don't know if I would have had the language or the ability to access that had I not had the opportunity to be on this show. So I just want to thank you all for giving me that space to really dream with you.
Well, I did not expect to cry
I
on
did
this
not either.
episode. Wow.
I did not expect that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we've been doing, it's like, you know, it's like they say no, you can't, that's unreasonable. And the whole concept of our show has been fuck you, why? Show us why. And then trying to have that conversation. And I don't know, like you always wonder like if we've made an impact, and you hope we have. I for one can't believe Flo's running for mayor.
I can't believe I'm running for mayor. Like it's a little bit surreal for me too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say on that, Flo. Like you kind of fuck. I don't.
I mean, I have something to say about that. I mean, I just kind of would like to name would like to name it that it's 100%, it's 1000% reciprocated. Like there's a lot of reasons why I love this show and love being connected to this show, and because it really, I feel like it connects me to this community and to this city in a way that I wouldn't, is not otherwise there. But the other thing that it also has done is it gives me an opportunity to be with y'all, you know, in a really, really, really special way. And Flo, like, I mean, you know, who knows? It's impossible to know, but if you hadn't have just like walked up my stairs as a stranger to record that first episode, we might not have a relationship, you know,
Right.
we might not know each other. And I'm like super grateful to this show for creating that opportunity and creating that connection, and super grateful to you for coming with us on it, you know, like doing this show with you, I mean, with all of you, really it's been, I mean, it's what got me through the pandemic. I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about it, but all of it to say, Flo, it has been, I mean, not just a pleasure, because it has been a pleasure to do this show with you, but it has really, truly been an honor. And it will always feel like that to me, I think, when I think back on these years of Voices. So thank you for, I know, like out of all of us, especially during COVID, you had a lot on your plate and you still made time to come in and do this with us, and you do make time. And I know it wasn't always easy, and I see it and I appreciate it. And as you know, and I'm over the moon for what, you know, for what the potential that this has for Sacramento, this move. But yeah, it's been an awesome 3 years, and you were a really, really major part of what made it so special. So thank you for giving that to us.
Thank you, Skylar. You're my favorite person to watch movies with and debrief. There wouldn't be a Voices cinematic universe without you.
Oh my God. You two and your movies.
Yeah, truly. Everybody.
I know you had to announce right before summer movie season too, because there's so many movies coming.
Listen, like you all have to have the freedom to be able to like criticize me and have some objectivity there, but like we can still talk movies, right? Like that's not become political, has it? Like
let's bring you on like a Patreon episode and be
yeah, like
you
let's
pay
talk
$500 to the campaign to listen to the Voices episode.
I would love that.
To listen to what Flo thinks about the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, but all the real ones, all the lefties, we'll get it to you for free. Don't worry. But yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like Shannon, I don't know if you want to add anything on this side, or if we end up saying shit on the other side too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will end up saying something on the other side. But this
I mean, after we die is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. When we're dead.
Oh, that other side. Okay, well.
Right.
I'm struck by sort of the weight and importance of the moment that we find ourselves in, like this very moment, the four of us in this like futuristic weird way that we communicate now, which is a Zoom room, that we over the last many years now have been able to create a family of four weirdos that are able to like get into some really deep shit and unpack things and agree and disagree even with each other, but still come back together. That community has really been formed here, and I'm so struck by like the idea that Voices had an influence on your memory to dream, Flo. I think that is such a it's so striking and beautiful, and I'm slapped to the ground by it. And I cannot believe that I have been able to be a part of Dr. Flojaune Cofer's dreaming process, as small as it as it might be.
It's the most important thing.
But I don't know. I guess I just want us to recognize what this is before we do get on the other side, because this is the last time the four of us are sitting here as the Voices River City co-hosts, and that is like really, really sad. But it's also so
ready for that.
It is also really exciting. It's like it can be both things, and it is both things. And I am like over the moon excited about what the future will bring. And I hate everything that is involved with supporting political candidates. But my big ol' Mexican rump will be out there knocking on doors. So yeah, it's a long-winded way to say, like, let's take a little picture of this moment in our minds and not forget it.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a few little tears here. Wasn't expecting that.
Not at all. I was not.
No, God, it's like it actually didn't even occur to me, like, the reality of what this show is, which is see you later, Flo, and tell us about what you're doing. Like, it just, as I logged on, I was just like, we're just doing a show, and the four of us are like here for
Right. It felt like
an intro
rote at first, and then
Yeah.
I sit down, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I was even like doing the thing that I do, which is like answering work emails and shit, until all of a sudden I was like, wait, this is serious. Like, I need to tune in a little bit.
Can we try a little bit of levity before
Yes,
we
let's
jump
do it.
over? What's our favorite flow moment of the show?
I wonder what Skylar's favorite flow moment is.
I don't
know.
think I can think of a better one than what I think he's gonna say.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys think I'm gonna say Spunt?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Spunt. I mean, Spunt is a classic moment.
So, did you just say spunt?
Oh my God.
Spunt was great. The other one that I always crack up about too is when we got in that argument about David Garibaldi and Flo wouldn't let it go and like kept bringing it up.
I wasn't on the show
Oh
for
my
that.
God, I forgot about that.
He is a national treasure.
National
Well,
treasure.
you can get that Garibaldi
Stand by
money
it.
now. You like
Listen.
you caped for him.
I
Yeah.
stand by that David Garibaldi is a national treasure. I am wrapped
You
every
listening,
time
David?
he starts like painting something and then like spins it on his head, and I'm like, it's Prince. Like, it's amazing, and I don't care how basic that makes me.
It's so
I
dumb.
love it.
I will say this: if you become the first Black woman mayor of Sacramento, David Garibaldi will for sure do an upside down.
Oh.
painting.
He has to do an upside down.
He has to.
100%.
I think it's like in his contract with Sacramento, right?
Listen, I'm here
Upside
for
down
it.
flow.
Listen, because it's the music and he's dancing, he's just like splat, splat, and then like I love it. Like, what's that? Like, that is everything that visual and performing arts aspire to be.
I'm
And I
so
stand
angry at how
by
dumb
the
this
fact
is.
That
I
I
know.
believe in this, and you all are wrong.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's
David, call me.
Flo's one bad take.
Really, in like 260 hours of show, that's pretty impressive.
Such a blind spot,
Yeah.
because I am fully convinced that you all are wrong on this. Like, you cannot. Like, I know I consider myself a learning person, and I want to hear the takes, and there is no alternative take on this. Like, David
Mhm.
Garibaldi is a national treasure, and you all just like, maybe I need to buy you tickets to his next event, because maybe you didn't experience it right, maybe you weren't in the right mind frame, but it is like mind blowing.
Something
Mhm.
told me you were a person who listened to differing opinions, and there's a whole choir. And,
Yeah,
no,
no,
but like
I
this
will not
is-
on this.
this
David
level of
Garibaldi is my
obstinacy,
person.
ma'am.
Mhm.
I
Speaking of obstinacy, one of the other great flow moments, I think. Do you guys remember that episode where we were talking about I think we were gonna throw spike strips in front of bicyclists that ride down the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
like
gosh.
everybody was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
laughing about it, and Flo could not shift gears from being a public health
Uh-huh.
professional
I
for
could
long
not.
enough to like riff on the joke. And so if you go back and listen to that, the episode is riddled with like Shannon will just randomly be like, spike strip. You can hear Flo be like, no.
No, don't do this. Such a
Ever
bad,
the straight man.
such a terrible take.
No.
I think there are so many. When I think about my favorite Flo moments, I think about like a cluster of moments, which is anytime Flo hated it here.
Mhm.
And it generally had to do with like
That was
the
her,
bathtub vaccination.
it was her
Mhm.
tagline basically on the
Yes.
show.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm
Mhm.
here so I don't get fined, like Marshawn Lynch, because you all tested so much of my patience with these freaking vaccine, like in the bathtub and like drive by, put your butt to the window. Like it was just so bad. And I was just like, I know you're joking. But
That's
the
one of my
problem
proudest
with
intros.
is that
It was a good
people
one.
don't understand a joke anymore. And there are people who are seriously out there like, yep, see?
I mean, mine for me, it is Spunt. It's so
I love Spunt.
Bunt is so good.
Did you say spunt?
and for
Like,
folks,
this is
it was
exactly what happened.
it was an episode where I was like asking the co-host to guess someone's nickname in a story I was reading or something.
Yeah, some like
And-
state of
And so everyone's
Jefferson
like
dude.
Slim, like
Yeah.
Beardo.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what Flo yelled out.
From like,
But
It
she didn't
was-
say spunt, but it just sounded like it, like the audio was weird. And so what did you say, Flo?
no, I said spunt.
You definitely did not say spunt.
You did not
No,
say spun.
No, I did. And then you thought I said the C word. And I
I
was
thought you
like,
said the C word.
yes. And you were
Yes.
like, woo.
And I was like, let's move on to the next topic.
You were
please.
trying to move it along.
I thought no.
Well,
I
The way
said
I
Hunt.
remember it is that you said Hunt because he was like his name was Hunter or something.
I
his
think
real
that was
name
it. I think that was it.
And
Okay,
when
well,
you
ma-
said it, it sounded
This
like
could be the
spun. So then
Mandela
the
effect.
conversation just
Yeah,
kind of
maybe it is.
continued for a
Skylar's
minute.
been reiterating it for years now.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna say
I
it-
listened to it somewhat recently.
Okay.
Actually.
It could be the Mandela effect because
It
I
was
thought I said
Hunt.
spunt. Okay.
That's
I
what
said
it
Hunt.
was.
And you
Yeah.
thought I said the C word, and then
Uh-huh.
you thought I said spunt, and then that's how it became a thing. Okay.
and I
And
was
All
just
right,
here
sure.
for the laughs.
And I still cannot get over the concept of that as a nickname. We need to find a friend who that will be their nickname.
Yes. I can't get over it as a concept of something that someone would guess.
Yes,
It's like, guess what
as
this
a
guy's
nickname.
nickname is? Spunt.
That's
That's my
what I
guess.
thought. I guessed spunt. And I was just like, sometimes I just say things and
Uh,
they don't make sense.
Well, my favorite thing about this, and the day Flo told us about her run for office, we were talking about our favorite moments on the show, and Spunt came up, and I came up
Mhm.
with, and this is an homage to you, my Vang of District 8. My Vang's whole like hashtag when she runs for office is heart and hustle. So I started saying hashtag spunt and spussle,
Mhm.
which I think we should run with. I don't know. I don't know who your comms guy is, Flo,
agree.
but I'm going to talk to
I
them.
can't believe it's
agree.
not. I can't believe it's not on all of the printed material. And
Hashtag spunt and spuzzle.
Yeah.
Because then everybody has more questions than they have answered. What is spunt and what is spuzzle?
I think it's time for me to make another mug.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's time for me to get a tattoo.
I just want to point out the fact that like I always make fun of the like super earthy people. Not make fun of. Make fun of. Let's just own it. I make fun of the super earthy people in my life who are like all about the energy and the crystals and like the manifestations and the chakras and all of that stuff. I'm like, all this is new age, right?
Hmm.
And yet there's a little bit of like, I feel like somebody has a doll somewhere that they're like manipulating, because I never like wanted to like a month and a half ago, I was planning to be in Ghana for like all of December of 2024. Like, I feel like I'm in a game of The Sims and somebody is just like, override, this is what you're going to do. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do it, because I'm just like, you all manifested something that I did not see and did not like And so you with that like Flow 2024 mug is just tripping me out because I'm just like, and there's a group chat on Facebook Messenger where like several people are like, we manifested it. And I'm like, I can't counter you because I just like, this is a little surreal to me too. Like
I was looking at that chat. I'm like, when's the last time anyone messaged the group on
that's
that?
what I'm saying. Like, it's just so
That was
weird.
2
And I'm
years
like,
ago
I
at
don't know
least.
what's happening right now. And I'm me. So
Yeah,
if anybody else feels like they have whiplash, join the club. Like you are one of the 1 billion people. No, it's not 1 billion. It's like 100 people on the planet who are like, what?
I'm thinking about
this.
When you told the three of us, I think all of us were kind of gobsmacked. None of us saw that coming at all.
I certainly didn't.
I didn't see it coming, and I'm me.
But I kept the mug just in case. And I dug it out this morning.
You did, and I love you for it.
Well, should we wrap with co-host Flo and meet special guest Flo?
No.
We don't have to. This can just be the entire episode.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I think as wonderful, as magical as it has been to have co-host Flo on this show for the time we've been lucky enough to have her. Sacramento is ready for candidate Flo, and I think we should give it to him.
Oh, we're gonna give it to him.
Yes.
Hashtag Spunt and Spuzzle.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Shannon.
And Flo. I just feel like this tequila is amazing.
It's so funny.
It's great.
Yeah.
Save it for a vase.
We've got Flo now as special guest, Dr. Flo, public health expert.
Am I supposed to do something special now that I'm not a host?
No, I mean,
okay.
You just sit back and we'll drive the show.
Okay.
What you were supposed to do was time it wrong with the intro, like and.
Oh yeah, right. Be like kind of weird.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Be a little
do over. Okay.
3, 2. Oh, hello everyone. You have Kempa
and Shannon.
And Flo.
There we go.
That's it. Nailed it.
Our special guest, Dr. Flo. And then I try and save it a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's perfect. You're gonna be a good guest moving on when you're running the world.
Just remember to do that every time we have you on as a guest.
Yes. I will make sure I have El Mayor tequila.
So
I feel like I need to like plug it like we used to plug White Claw when we were trying to get them to be a sponsor, like El Mayor. You should be the official sponsor of my company.
I'm watching this and I'm like, Flo, keep this out the screen. This is going to be so much Oppo. Like, let's stop.
I mean, what's the Oppo? Like, this is
I mean, you're not drinking it straight, I guess.
Right. I was like,
it's after hours.
Again, the majority of the voters
they don't care.
Under 50. And this is like relatable content for them. Like, let's just be honest. Like, I feel like I can kind of be myself because
that's been funny already, like watching the old guard, like the little attacks they've tried on you in your first day of your campaign. Like Steve Maviglio was like,
oh God.
Oh, looks like this candidate couldn't find a Sacramento treasurer. She has one in this like other town. And like I was reading
nobody in Sacramento wanted to be affiliated.
Yeah. And I'm like, Steve, nobody gives a fuck.
Also, Chelsea is from Sacramento and moved to Lake County to support her family, which is something I had to do in 2021 for like 8 weeks to support my family. So maybe that's not the burn you think it is. This is someone who like is deeply committed to their family and really? Okay.
Gross.
Yep. That tweet retweeted by a potential candidate's husband. Go back and look that one up, folks.
Oh,
Why don't we start the show?
yeah.
Let's do
Special
it.
guest. Let me know if I'm pronouncing this right. Flojaune.
Flojaune Cofer? Is that what we're doing here? Okay, well, listen.
Well, we all have to get in
You
the.
could be like my friend Quentin from college and call me Flojaune, knowing full well that was not my name, but he'd be like, Flojaune! And I'd be like, that's not my name.
Which, by the way, the city clerks actually spelled it like that for the first 15 minutes that was up this week,
Yeah.
and that was incredibly funny. And
It's
like, we
always
shouldn't have caught that, but I was refreshing the site every 5 minutes, so I was waiting to see it. No hit against you, city clerks. You fixed it incredibly fast, and we didn't even have to call
Thank
you.
Thank you.
But so let's start it out. Dr. Flo, renowned epidemiologist. Your history, of course, most recently, you are the policy director of Public Health Advocates.
Mhm.
Senior policy director.
Shout out to my job because
Senior.
they're amazing.
Yeah. 4 terms as chair of the Measure U Community Advisory Committee, which is basically a committee that was supposed to guide tax dollars that Sacramentans agreed upon to programs, coffers, whatever that the community wanted it to go to, but that obviously didn't happen, which I think is a big impetus for why you are where you are. So I'm glad I lost that Measure U fight and you won, because now here we are. So I mean, what else? Longtime community advocate.
I mean, but did any of us really win the Measure U fight? Like,
yeah, that's
right.
a big,
Say that though.
like,
fantastic point. Yeah.
yeah.
So where do we begin? Where do we begin with Flo today, Shannon? What do you think?
Well, all of those things that Kempo just mentioned are real and true. And the one thing that we can add to the list of all of the things that Flo has done is Sacramento mayoral candidate for 2024.
I forgot that one. Yeah.
Because more is possible with Dr. Flo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're gonna just like treat you as a guest, Flo.
Okay.
We've heard that you
Let's ask the
came to
hard
the-
questions.
yeah.
Do it.
Flo,
Let's do it.
who do you think you are?
Okay. I
And
definitely
why?
don't. And why?
How do you sleep at night?
I actually sleep really well. That is one thing like I have extreme privilege on is that like I am a light switch. So when I lay down, it's like
Envious.
my lights out, we're done. And then when my alarm goes off, I'm like, okay, we're up. So and my alarm goes up at 5:43 a.m. every morning, including
You just
weekends.
lost a lot of votes right now.
I know. Okay, listen.
You
here's
have
why.
mine.
Here's why.
I'm awake then.
Because when I go the 5 days
I'm
a week
awake
that I
then
do
too,
go to the
actually.
gym,
That's weird. We all have that in
5:43 gives
common.
me the time to get to the gym by 6:15, more like 6:17. But the warm up period is like 5 minutes. So as long as I get there before 6:20, we're fine. Don't tell my workout partners that.
I didn't
but
really care about this
That's kind of
question.
how I care. So that wake up time, it just like allows my body to like move out of the REM sleep and into the lighter sleep, even on the days that I'm not working out,
Okay,
which are usually
science.
Mondays and Thursdays.
Mm.
And and I just like I like that time in the morning. So
The theory of
here we
orange.
are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mental, emotional, social, physical well-being. Like, yeah.
Let's cut the crap. Let's
Okay.
get in the real shit.
Okay. Okay.
Let's
All
cut
right.
this fucking bullshit.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna grill you.
Throw me.
No, I mean, I think the biggie for a lot of folks is why? Because we've sort of had this kind of, the thing about this show, especially having a show like this during the pandemic where the 4 of us were kind of family, is that a lot of people talk to me about like, it felt like I was a part of that friend group during some of those times.
Mhm.
And so we all everyone sort of followed you on this journey, on your Measure U chair position, kind of how that all panned out, the frustrations you've had with the city over that, and myriad other issues. But we did 3 years ago folks stopped asking me if you were running for mayor, and I stopped asking you that as well. And something seems to have clicked about 2 years later. So what happened?
Yeah. I think the real change was, and I just want to be transparent with, our listeners, is like I made some flippant comment to my therapist in the last 30 seconds of one of our sessions, which is like kind of too on brand for even like me, because we always talk about in public health how, you have a whole visit with someone like in a clinical setting, and then it's, by the way, doc, on the way out the door, that is the thing you should have been spending all of that time you just spent on, right? It's like, oh, by the way, doc, what about this mole? And it's like, that ends up being like skin cancer, or like, oh, by the way, doc, like I've been having this discharge, and it's like, oh, that ends up being like a thing, right? So on like literally the last 30 seconds, I was just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of like how, a lot of people want me to run for mayor, and I'm not going to do that. And she was like, why don't we start there with our next session? and I was like, I hate good therapists because they won't let you
right,
your way out of like important conversations.
They're always looking for the pearl.
Always. And so the conversation we had was, she was like, listen, I understand that, because I've always described myself as this person who made major life decisions based on the recommendations of others. And so she was like, I understand that you're trying to balance like, responsibility and control and all of those things. But like, you also always say that like, if everybody said something about you, there's probably a nugget of truth in it. And like, is there something that you're missing because of your perspective? And several people said to me in this lead up to this conversation, to the follow-up conversation with my therapist, like, I don't think you see yourself in the way that other people see you. And so I went into the conversation like, okay, she's going to walk me through this process. And she made me explore like, what would running for this office look like? And what would assuming this office look like for every domain of my life, right? My personal, my physical, my mental, my, social, my emotional well-being. And I still wasn't convinced at the end of the conversation that this was like the right choice for me. But then she kind of gave me this homework of like, dream about it, like think about it, right? Spend some time, considering, is this right for you? And so I did. I sat down one like weekend afternoon and just like, was like, okay, what would I do? And what would my challenges be? And what would my barriers be? And what would I hate about this? And all of those things. And I looked up and I had 16 pages of notes. And I also felt excited. And I was just like, here's the challenges and here's the barriers and here's all the things I won't be able to do that are going to piss me off. And here are all the things that I could do that would make me really excited. And, here's how I would govern myself. And here are my values. And, here are the things I will accept and I won't accept. And it was like, and I actually felt this excitement about this that I had never felt when people said it before. I felt flattered, right? I felt like, oh, you're saying that because you want to offer me a compliment, and I receive it in the spirit in which I think it was given, which is like, I like you and you have good ideas and maybe those ideas should have a bigger platform. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I would move on, because I didn't really, there was a part of me that just kind of felt like, oh, this is just people saying a nice thing, right? And then to actually explore it, I actually got excited about like, no, there's some real opportunity here. And maybe this combination of my like life experience has equipped me to be able to do this thing. And so once that door opened, it like didn't close. And so, then I was having a conversation with Kula's husband, Bobby, at her birthday party. And he was like, I want to tell you why you should be the mayor of Sacramento. And I was like, it was the first time in my life where I was like, okay, pitch me on this. And he was like, okay, but I want to do it when we're not like at a party, right? And I was like, okay, so pick a time, pitch me on this. And so Kula and Bobby came over to my house the next Friday. This was like a Saturday afternoon. And he, came over to my house the next Friday and he was like, here's my pitch. And he just like laid it on me. And I was like, okay, let's think about like my work life. How are we going to do this? And so we got on the phone with like my work husband, Sergio. That's always how I refer to him. He's our director of HR. And he's like one of my, super close friends. And we were like, can I run for office while still being employed
you
here?
have a good friendship with HR where you were like, this is the kind of person.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I'm like, can we do this? And he's like, yeah, there's no conflict. Like, it's no problem. And I'm like, okay, I'll put it on my agenda to talk to our executive director about during our next one-on-one, which happened to be that Friday. And then I was like, okay, I guess we're like doing this. And then started like, okay, so who do I need on my kitchen cabinet? And I felt like I needed people who had both expertise in campaigns and also the ability to tell me that I was dead wrong and completely off base with whatever my instincts are. Because I jokingly refer to myself as the Trump of the left, because they know I'm going to go off script and they know I'm going to say what I really think. And they're spending all this time doing these detailed plans. And I'm just like, a reporter's going to ask me something and I'm like, let me tell you what I thought about this.
You do that, but I was thinking about this earlier.
Oh,
you're still kind of a sponge though, too. You take in the good and then you sort of just like excise like the bad advice. Like you're very good at that. And maybe there's some good advice you excise as well, like, baby bathwater, but like you're very,
I hope so.
I don't know. I one thing I like about you as a leader is like you never get mad at people. When somebody is consulting you on something or giving you advice or anything, you literally just take it in and then you're like, okay, thank you. And then we move on. And then like, for me, whenever I work with you on something, it's like I get to watch kind of what you took and what you didn't. And it's always very fascinating to me. But like
that is so incredibly gracious of you, David Kempa.
Yeah. I mean, you like that's how I view you. It's like there's like I can see the gears as I'm explaining something to you, and then I'm like, okay, let's see what she takes out of it.
And honestly, I feel like that's the role of an elected official, right? Is to like really be able to hear and respect people's, I hope that my team feels like I respect their expertise. Like I'm not coming into this saying to, Annie, who is one of my, I've known her literally for almost my entire life because we went
Can we talk about Annie?
Yeah. We can talk about
Annie.
Annie.
Kill us for this?
Annie's not. So It's funny because when I told my mom, my mom was like, so who's like, so let me just say, my mom both is excited and also has no clue what's happening because she is like your average person. So she's just like, okay, so like, oh, you want me to like help you fundraise? Like, I didn't think okay, so I thought I was just gonna like fly to Sacramento a couple of times and maybe like knock on some door. Like, what do you need here? Like, she's not. Like my mom is political in the sense of like she's an engaged voter, but she's not political in the sense of like she's worked on a campaign before. So she just has no clue. So I love her as my litmus test because she has no clue. And so I said to her, she was like, so who do you have like working on your campaign? And I was like, oh, Annie. And my mom was like blank stare. And I'm like, Annie. And she's like, little Annie.
Like from nursery school?
Right, from nursery school, Annie. Yeah. So Annie and I went to preschool together. And Annie has been doing this work for a long time. And she's always like, well, when you're ready to run, just make sure I'm one of your first calls. And I was like, Annie, girl, that's never going to happen. But thank you. Like, I love you. And then when I actually decided, I was like, oh, I think I'm supposed to call Annie because I think she told me that all the time. And so we get on the call and she's like, you remember when we set up our own like play date and we informed our parents afterwards? And she was like, this is like the full circle moment of that. And I'm like, I actually remember that Annie and I decided that we were going to have a play date and that we needed certain snacks. We had picked a date and a time, and we were going to inform our parents that this play date was going to occur. And it's funny because my mom remembers it, and she was just like, at that moment, I had a conversation with Annie's parents, and like the four of them were just like, we are in some serious trouble with these two because they are they are not yet 3 years old, and they have planned their own play date
They're making
and
shit
have
happen. Yeah.
instructed us on how we can support them. Like,
That's so great.
Can
so,
I share
yeah.
with folks after this story now? Unless you have more there to share.
No.
We are talking about a woman named Annie Weinberg.
Mm-hmm.
She is most recently known for helping get Summer Lee into Congress this past year. Summer, who I believe Summer beat kind of a mod dem in the primary, very rough and tumble fight, and she came out on top. You know, Annie's been working with the squad for ages. She was a part of, I think, a lot of the Bernie stuff, you know, sort of our revolution type
Move on.
culture.
Like she's been doing this.
She's a heavy fucking hitter on a national level. And this is just randomly Flo's nursery school like friend. And like, so that's the fun thing. Like when I look at I like looking at your campaign right now and seeing what the insiders, especially the old white dudes like Steve Maviglio or like the old white dudes at I Street Public Affairs, like they don't know what to do. They don't know if it behooves them to try and discredit you, make you seem like, you know, this isn't a serious campaign. But it's like when you have someone like Annie involved here, and you see how many people just showed the fuck up to your speech, like it's not even about you anymore. Right? Like it's the community is here to make this fucking thing happen. I don't know. I think that's the really exciting thing to me. It's like, you know, you've got a heavy hitter like her. She is very much a not me, us mentality. And like you go to this thing to your speech, to your launch today being Wednesday, April 19th, outside City Hall. And then the amount of people that were out there was just incredible. The energy was incredible.
It really was. And I think I'm really honored that several people said, you know, I come to City Hall a lot, but I never feel joy when I come to City Hall. And today I felt joy. That like, because the first thing I said was like, this is what governance should feel like. Like, I mean, you know, I am not a person who prays at the altar of, you know, the founding fathers because they wanted to exclude the voices of most of us, right? You know, if you weren't, I mean, everybody on this call, right? Because you needed to be a white landowning man over the age of 21. And so
if folks are wondering, I don't own land.
Yeah. I was like, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, that. And yet, I think that there is this like in the way that I think that we should have a constitutional convention because I don't think they've gotten everything right. I also think there are some things that they also did get right, even while they were like stealing land from one group of people and abusing another as, you know, enslaved captors who had no rights. And I think some of that is like the promise of what can happen when people can come together. And I recognize their definition of people is much different than my definition of people. But I mean, luckily for us, we've been able to overturn some of their definitions of people. And so now it's just people. And so I think about that and like the idea that people felt joy showing up to a public space and thinking about what their future could look like with their voices included, really like it's humbling for me in so many ways.
Yeah. I think that like the press conference / rally / party
hey,
like
that happened today at City Hall was that was a lot of evidence of the person that you are and the community that you have built. And like, while the question around like, you know, tell me why you want to be Sacramento, the mayor of Sacramento is important. I think what we saw today was that there was probably over 100 people standing just outside of City Hall who, if you asked any one of them if they would vote today, who would they vote for? And they would confidently say, I would vote for Dr. Flo because I know who she is and I know what she stands for. Because that is such a huge part of just how you take up space in the world. Like, you are a person who lives with a framework that is rooted in community care and the endeavor to find equitable spaces for people or create equitable spaces for people. So we had this opportunity today to hear formally from you why, right? Why you're doing this thing. And I arrived early because I wanted to make sure I didn't want to have to deal with parking, and I just like wanted to be there and like make sure that I like had my spot, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And so I somehow was able to park right in front of Old City Hall. And then I came around the corner and took a break with a cigarette, which Flo talked about during her
The
which I
one
talked
policy
about
of
next
Flo's Shannon and I don't agree with. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do agree with it. You just also run up against
No, I
it.
do. On its face, I agree with
Yes,
it.
you
There's,
agree
you
with
know,
it.
I do too.
Like,
I just I wouldn't mind.
and
having
that's
a
what I'm saying.
menthol.
Like, you don't disagree with me. You're just
Yes.
like,
I wouldn't mind a Camel
Come on,
Crush
Flo.
tonight, and I
Yeah.
can't have one because of you. So yeah.
So I came around the corner and I was standing like on a patch of grass. And as I was coming around the corner, I was like, is that music? Like, what is that? Like, where is that coming from? And I just like kept walking and like walked past the Joe Cerna statue and was like, holy shit, that is like straight up jams coming from outside of City Hall with this like banner that says Dr. Flo for Sacramento mayor. And immediately it was like, this is what this should feel like. Like, and walking up and like knowing people, right? Like that, being able to like hug and shake hands with people that you know are like-minded and we're all like, even people that you don't know, you know that we're all there for this one reason, which is to support this person on this wild ass journey to office. So I don't know. It's probably I've been to a squillion press conferences / rally / announcement things out in front of City Hall in the time that I've lived in Sacramento. And that by far was like the most fun. I was like, who's going to bring the grill out and start like cooking hot dogs? And like,
So how is it that fun?
yeah.
like, yeah, it was. I was sad
You
I
said
had to
over
leave.
You
And
said
I
over
was-
100 people, like another friend guessed 250. It's probably somewhere in between there.
We had 150 people sign up.
150 people signed the volunteer form or
Yeah.
the
So
attendance form.
so yes, it's somewhere in there.
Yeah. And like I don't know, it was just incredible. I mean, I ended up, the schedule we had out that we'd worked on was like 30 minutes, give or take, and we were out there for well over an hour and a half. Like, I got burnt.
Yeah, but I will say, like, in terms of, because I did, I had took time out of work to come out, but I did have to go back to work. So I left, a little afternoon. But like, in terms of like being able to show up and hear from the candidate, like what she's all about, like it was a succinct, captivating story from the beginning. It was, about 20 minutes or so, like with questions. Not only did we get to learn a little bit more about Flo, but we also got to hear, what her platform is. None of which, if you know her, is surprising. It's like, oh, well, of course. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
actually, that's funny that you say that, because like, even this show, this episode, Flo, like, you're not introducing yourself to folks necessarily, but then again, you were in front of all these people that you knew from all these different ways, but you were telling a story about yourself that they didn't necessarily know. So, like, to quote Jay-Z, allow me to reintroduce myself. Like,
my name is Flo. I didn't have a follow-up to that. I'm sorry. I didn't think to rap
I know. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll workshop that.
F to the L-O.
L to the
go.
C. I don't know.
There you go.
And I mean, you told your story of growing up and who your family was and why you are who you are today. And yeah, that's funny. I guess I never thought of that because, like, when you got to the platform, that was just very fun too, because you used fun metaphors. We got to
because I'm trying to overcome not getting the like. I really struggle with the analogy section of the SATs because standardized tests are just terrible. And so I have spent my entire life trying to understand analogies and make them a part of my life.
I've drifted through life because I'm good at standardized tests. Terrible work.
Yeah, I'm good at the math portion. Like, I got that from my dad and also maybe my mom. But like, the math portion was fine. It was the analogy section that just like would do me in. And they'd be like, veneer is to wood as this is to that. And I'd just be like,
veneer is to wood?
Veneer is to wood.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
And I'm like,
did you just say spunt?
And I would just be like, there are so many dimensions of what these two relationships could be like. And I would struggle with it. And so I've spent my whole life on a revenge mission to like understand analogies. And so
I mean, we don't need to stay too much on like the speech today. Like, who, if you were there, you were there. It was fucking amazing. Come to the next thing. We're going to have fundraisers. We're going to have parties and stuff. Like, things are going to happen. Yes, I guess disclosure, I'm helping Flo with this stuff. But like, I had somewhere else to go with it. You know what I found interesting? I found myself like being like, I was like, I like being I was being maternal. I was like, oh, Flo's been in the sun for a long time. Like, should we move her to the shade?
Oh, that's so sweet.
I was like, should we get her water? Like, she's been talking.
I was looking at her shoes like, oh my gosh, she's taking those shoes for so long.
Oh, Shannon, after you left, she talked with folks for an hour more. And like, I was just like, I found myself being like, no one asked me to be your handler, but I was like, oh, we should move Flo. Like,
I do have SPF in my face cream, so.
Well, also, you are my friend who, like, see, I was out in the sun as long as you were, did not go well for me. But you're my friend who, the day that we went to Half Dome,
took a nap in the sun.
You napped in like on bare rock with nothing over your skin. Like
#melanin.
8,000 feet in the air.
Yeah. That's
and we were gone for an hour and came back down, and you just were kind of like, oh, hey guys, what's up? And like, nothing.
Yeah, no.
So I don't know why I was worrying about you. I should have been momming myself.
You should have been momming yourself, absolutely. And also, my daily facial moisturizer has SPF in it, so
I should probably start doing that too.
Should have known. Yeah, you should.
Pushing 40. That's how long we've been doing the show.
And also, like, SPF multiplies my natural skin protective factor, and since I have lots of melanocytes, like, it doesn't take much. So,
epidemiologist Dr. Flojaune Cofer for Sacramento.
I just like the science is there, right? Of like, if I put a protection on and I already have a natural protection, then I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Shannon, should we grill her with the tough questions before we run the show out?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Sure.
I'm a mean journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, kind of am.
I said,
All right. Do I go first, Shannon? What do you think?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Dr. Flo Cofer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have gone on record defending violence by protesters. You've gone on record
Okay.
Uh-oh.
defending domestic terrorism.
Okay. Okay.
Sculptures have been broken. Trash cans tipped to the ground. Doors rapped upon.
Mm-hmm.
These house call protests
Mm-hmm.
that you so heartily defended in the hallowed pages of the Sacramento Bee, do you still defend protests in front of one's house? Would you defend someone protesting, knocking over your trash can, knocking over sculptures in front of your home?
So let me be really clear. I will always support folks coming together to hold elected officials accountable, including when that elected official is me. And I have said as much when I have had media interviews, because I have enjoyed, really strong ties to the media. And I started every interview with saying to the people who I've worked with before, look, I just want to be really clear. You're a professional. And so maybe I don't need to say this, but I believe in a free press. And that includes your ability to be able to criticize me. And so I don't want you to feel as if I won't take your calls or, I will block you out because of that, because it's really important to me. Like, one of my deepest fears is losing the thing that made people want me for this role in the first place. And so I am constantly checking myself on that. So, as your mayor, I'll welcome the accountability because I know that our city is better for it. Our democracy and our city hall work better when people across communities have a real say in the political process. And when elected officials are responsible for the folks we're honored, honestly, to represent. And I feel very deeply in my soul that people join protests for the same reasons that they vote, right? Or join commissions, or call legislators, or even decide to run for office, because we're facing real pain and we love our communities and we want to make a difference. So my message to the folks in our community who are struggling right now with the pain of things like police brutality, or of evictions, or skyrocketing housing costs, or years of economic disinvestment, is that you deserve to be heard. And I hope that I commit to you that I'm going to create a process where you can feel heard in the structure. But you also deserve to have a mayor that's listening to you. But if you're not feeling heard, if I'm not making that possible, I'm not going to backtrack on my feelings about your ability to show up and say, you're not hearing me. And especially because when these home protests were happening, it was during COVID, when people were working from home and nobody was at City Hall.
City Hall. Yeah.
And so the idea that, so this was your home office. And as a person who has worked from home before COVID, because my organization has been work from home since even before I was hired in 2017, we recognize what it means to have a home office legally and in every way possible. And so I don't think it's beyond the fray to protest when you don't feel heard, when people are working from home, so thus that is their home office, and when you haven't created a structure. But my hope is that by restructuring the way that we make decisions at City Hall, people will feel heard. Because I don't think people are being unreasonable when they're showing up to protest. I think they are using that as a tool because it's a way to be heard. Mm. And I'm honestly just committed to being the mayor that can tackle these issues and the big challenges that we face with urgency on day one. So as I expressed in my op-ed, my human empathy goes out to Julie and Daryl Steinberg for what they experienced. And also, I think there was a path to prevention, and prevention is the core in my heart. I don't think we should respond to things that we could have prevented. And I think if you set up a system where people can feel heard, you cut down on a significant amount of people engaging in things that make you uncomfortable.
Mm. You've made worms meat of me, Doctor. Shannon, time for you to take a go at her.
it is no surprise to anyone who lives in Sacramento that the Sacramento Kings have made it to the playoffs. And they are playing in an arena at Doco, which is enormous, and it's called Beautiful, and state of the art and all of this. We've had many elected officials actually advocated for the arena to be built in City Center. And part of the reason for that was because it was going to foster economic development for our city. But the working people of the city and the poor people of the city have actually felt that the arena has pushed folks experiencing homelessness further out into the margins.
Yep.
Has displaced them.
Yep.
It has driven the cost of housing through the roof.
Yep.
And has created a space where Sacramento is not an affordable place to live, even for people who have lived here for their entire lives.
That's right.
Now, this is not to say that having the Kings in the playoffs isn't fun, because I too shout at the TV screen in excitement.
It's fun. Light the beam.
Light the beam. But my question is, how do you deal with the reality of the need for economic development potentially costing people safe spaces?
Shannon, this is a great question. And I think, as you were asking it, I was in complete agreement with the challenges that the city is facing. Because on one hand, you want to be a young, thriving city where people can take a light rail and actually get somewhere that they want to go. Because unfortunately, our light rail was set up in a way where it doesn't go where anybody wants to go. And it only goes it was set up in a way that just doesn't make sense, right? When I got here and I was like, okay, so the state fair is happening. Let me take, oh no, light rail doesn't go there. Okay, I'd like to go to the game. Okay, light rail doesn't go there because that was Arco Arena in North of Thomas. Okay, well, I'm going to the airport. Oh wait, light rail doesn't go there. I'm like, where does light rail go if it doesn't go to your major city centers, right? And your major attractions. So in some way, building a new arena that was actually on the light rail made sense in many ways in terms of like what traditional urban planning does and why you would want to have your major hubs be on, be accessible. And that's also for our climate goals and all of that. But it comes at a cost. And that cost is we decided how we were going to spend public dollars and how much we were going to spend on those public dollars. And then we're also inviting people from all over the region to come into this space. And so now we are prioritizing their needs, right? Their more privileged needs, in the truest sense of the words, over people who are unhoused. And part of what I believe is that more is possible. And I think that there don't have to be winners and losers. So what would it have looked like if before we made these decisions, we consulted the folks who were living in the spaces we were going to build on and said, what do you need to feel safe? What would it have looked like if we then identified places where people could be, knowing that we didn't have at the time the political will to build affordable housing, and we at least allowed them to be able to have a safe sanctuary of a place to be, knowing that this was coming? What would it have looked like if we had created a jobs program for folks who were unhoused, who are, if we look at the data, are wanting to work if they're not already working, because over a quarter of them are working, and are wanting to work and are feeling like they don't have the skills, or they don't have, or they're not like hireable in the traditional sense because maybe they have tattoos or they have mental health conditions or they have other things. What would it look like if we actually baked them into the process and taken the things that we hear from them about their fears or their concerns about hireability and said, we're going to address those in the process of building this? What would it look like if we had actually prioritized small businesses as being the primary vendors inside of this arena, right? Because it certainly has local business, but It doesn't have small businesses. There's not a single Black-owned business inside of the arena, right? Like, let's talk about what we did and what we didn't do. Because I think as much as, I am a fan of the Kings and I appreciate, some of what has happened here, I think there were a lot of opportunities that were missed along the way in terms of how we execute this. And so I think that's the way we go about this. I also think that, there should have been a plan for a buyback from the Kings, right? So the city is on the hook for $18 to $20 million or so a year that they have to pay out from the parking revenues. And during the pandemic, luckily, there were pandemic relief funds that were able to alleviate the city of that direct responsibility because they weren't getting parking revenue because everybody was at home. But usually the games and other events and things like that cover that obligation. So it's not a terrible investment. But what I'd like to see is, so that money is already set aside. What are we doing with the rest of the budget, right? That's a net zero. You have money coming in and money going out. So it's a net zero. The rest of the budget should be spent on housing. The rest of our political will should be spent on giving people proactive guidance on where they're allowed to be, because existing as a human is not an option. You take up space and you exist. And so the idea that we're constantly passing like ordinances that say, you can't be here, you can't be with this many people, you can't do this.
Sorry, the fact that Flo said that today about like, you can't just disappear people at her speech. Even Barry Broom was clapping. That blew my fucking mind. Like,
I'm just like, you can't disappear people. Like, existing is not an option. So what are we going to do about the fact that we have over 10,000 people who are unhoused, 2,300 shelter beds? There is math there. And that means that we need to be able to say to people, this is where you can be. And then we need to be able to build trust with them so that when there's housing options available, they are willing to take them because there's trust. Like, don't tell me that people don't want to take housing, because I think that's utter BS. What I think people are saying is, you've burned me so many times, I don't want to hear anything that you're saying. And I feel that deeply in my soul, because if I was I always start with, what would I want for myself? I don't want to sleep outside ever. Like, on period. Like, that's the end of the statement. Like, we can move on to the next chapter. So the idea that we are allowing people to sleep outside is already, you're not meeting my flow standard, because what I want for everybody else is the minimum of what I want for myself. So that's just not okay. And so if we're not even at the okay place, at least I would want to know, where can I go and sit my stuff down where I'll be free from harassment? If the city of Sacramento can't do that, that's utterly disqualifying. Like, this is a failed state and somebody needs to start over. You should be able to tell me where I'm allowed to be as a human being without being harassed, because that's not an option.
Shannon, I think we're losing control against our adversarial.
I'm just like, so, and then step 2 is like, for all the people who are housed right now, like, literally the woman who did my makeup said that her rent has gone up at least 3 times in the last year and a half. That's not legal. Like, we didn't get Measure C,
Yeah, no,
but
that's not
that's
legal.
not legal, right? And so, like, but luckily she was able to afford it, so she just paid it, but she did not know her rights.
Right, yeah.
And so step 2 in all of this is like, before people start getting evicted because they can't pay, like, are we actually honoring the existing city ordinances? I was in support of Measure C. I'm not backing away from that. I think we can do so much more for tenant protection. But that was voted down. Yes, context was it was the actual rent control ordinance that was on the ballot in 2020 that was defeated by voters. And so we don't have that.
Big shout out to friend of the show, Michelle Parasette, for forcing that on. And we all owe her so much.
Absolutely. But we do have the more lenient rent control, and we're not even doing that. So, like, before we, like, I guess what I'm coming at this from is, yes, as mayor, I would have to get 5 votes on a lot of things. And I think that with conversation and with collaboration, that's possible. But there are also some things that just require somebody to come in and say, this is the law, do it. And I don't see that happening.
Right.
And for me, that doesn't require 5 votes. That requires you to put an agenda item on your next council meeting that says, we're going to set some priorities as a city, because the process is already outlined in your budget. You're just not doing it and haven't done it since Daryl's been elected.
Right.
I've said it on the record. I've said it in Measure U meetings. I've said it directly to it in private meetings, in public meetings. Like, at some point, it's just willful defiance, which we suspend children for, but we ultimately reward politicians for, which is just like, I won't do this thing that I'm able to, that a process is outlined in my every budget for, that needs to be done. Like, in my old, like, make it make sense. Like, why we're not doing the basics?
I knew you were gonna say
It was going to come up at some point.
Like,
I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
I think that something, as you're talking, Flo, and I recognize that I've spent years on this show with you, and so I'm speaking out of a space of privilege, having had many, many conversations with you about many things. Is that, like, I'm hearing in you a candidate who takes that inspiration to dream so purely, because the inspiration to dream and the act of dreaming requires that we take a look at the landscape of how we got to where we are currently, and then that will then allow us to vision for the future, right? And so I think what we don't have in Sacramento is leadership that is willing to recognize where things have failed and where specific people have failed in their duties, right? Like, people are not willing to take on the accountability or to say the thing that is hard to say, like building a new arena in City Center, although it is super cool, came at a cost. Like, we haven't heard people say that before. Mm-hmm. And it's important to
our
recognize.
Downtown hasn't been revitalized even because of this. It's not.
It's so important
going to be the golden ticket. It never fucking was.
No, we have to recognize the complexity.
And ultimately, it's corruption when your city manager is insubordinate to his employers. I mean, like, we have to name the thing that happened, right? Which is that not that long ago, the city manager decided not to be apolitical, which the position ultimately is supposed to be, and decided to endorse a candidate for higher office, who then several days later introduced the ordinance to raise his pay.
Right.
If that's not quid pro quo, I don't know what is.
I'm smiling because this is news right now. I'm enjoying this.
I don't know what is. Like, and so when we've been on this show and said, Howard, I have questions, I get people's reflexive nature to be able to say, maybe we need a strong mayor because the city manager is unelected and does things. But I'm also inclined to say, why is no one talking about the active and blatant corruption that is happening in this city? Like, Angelique Ashby introduced an ordinance to raise Howard Chan's pay 3 days after he endorsed her for Senate.
This is our state senator who won office, and our city manager.
How is that allowed?
Employee who makes
how is that allowed?
He endorsed her. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that may be utterly disqualifying for me as a mayor to not take the tack that Darryl Steinberg often does, which is Howard's great and everything is perfect. But I don't think that makes me trustworthy. I don't think that makes me, I don't think that's the righteous, like,
it's just a systemic failure.
Went
right?
on record after that January 2021 storm and said he would do nothing different.
Yeah.
Right.
This is why people went and marched in front of their homes too. Right. It's all of these
I couldn't do that.
Folks died. And then what they tried to do in City Hall was try and paint it as a Stop Asian Hate thing. Like, fucking just
it's
disgusting.
These two things are not the same.
No,
This person has political power and has decided that he was
I will
gonna
not
double down.
help unhoused people, and I make $500,000 a year, and I will not tonight open up a shelter.
And I would not
people
open up
died,
a
and I
shelter.
would do it all over again.
I'd do it all
again.
over again. This like that is
Fuck
his
you, I'd
quote.
do it again.
I do it
Yeah.
all over. I would not do anything different. Like if you don't even have the benefit of hindsight, that should be utterly disqualifying for this. And the idea that you can't assemble 5 votes for people to say that's utterly disqualifying symbolizes to me some utter corruption around who is involved in this process, because ultimately what it means is that people are more committed to the status quo than they are committed to human rights.
Yeah.
I am a candidate who is running on a human rights platform. I am embarrassed that the United States has not ratified the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was introduced in 1948, because it has been like 75 plus years and we still haven't gotten on board to be able to say we can support human rights. But I believe in human rights. I believe humans have a right to exist. I believe humans have a right to have their basic needs met. And I think it is our government's responsibility to protect those rights. And I respect that business is going to try to make all of its profits, but I firmly believe that the government should not be playing the business's role in trying to protect profits. It should be playing the government's role, which is protecting people at all costs.
Okay. Guest, you've talked a little too long.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just, these
know,
things make me angry. I know we're gonna have to talk about them on the campaign.
no. We're just
trail.
trying to stay adversarial to you. Shannon,
Okay.
she squirmed her way out of this one pretty well.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to channel my best Katie Grimes from California Globe right now.
Ooh.
Flo, it's well documented that you love crime.
Okay. I'd like for you to point to specific instances, but sure.
Well, you clearly want to defund the police at all costs as fast as you can,
Did I
to
say
the
that?
detriment of all of us, the people who matter, who are homeowners in Land
Right.
Park in East Sacramento.
Did I?
And we have
say
questions.
that? Okay.
We do have questions, we
Okay.
landowners.
Over the age of 21 and white
Yes.
and male.
And white and male.
And yeah, Phil.
So not you, Katie Grimes, unfortunately, but please proceed.
Jeff Harris's of the world, if you will. Why do you love crime? And we're going to, crime is on the rise. We're going to elide the fact that if you look at the numbers in early 2013 that SacPD's put out, gun violence is down from 2022. Other crimes are down from 2022. We're going to elide all of that. And we're just going to say it's up because the B said it was up in 2022.
Okay.
So, given this, premise I have that is, my reality, and my just general fear of the universe, why do you want to defund the police and endanger all of us?
Okay, well, I find your premise to be spurious at best and bad faith at worst, but
Rude.
I'm going to engage it nonetheless. So I want to make it really clear that
Churlish and indignant.
that as I'm running for mayor, I am a fund public safety candidate. That is where I stand because I have never wavered from that position, which is that our goal is to create a city where we all feel safe. And so my bona fides in this matter are that I worked with Councilmember Jay Chenier in 2020 to pass a resolution redefining public safety for the city. And what we ultimately did was we expanded the definition of public safety to include prevention. And I am a preventionist at heart. I believe that we should respond after we prevented as much as we can. And I don't think that's a controversial position. I don't know anybody who's like, I would like to be a well-served victim of crime. Where I know people who are saying that they don't want to be a victim of crime ever. And I think that's a laudable goal and one that we should rally behind. So I want to make sure that our funding is focused on getting the best outcomes, which means preventing gun violence and crime and making sure that when there is something that maybe couldn't have been prevented, that the appropriate responder shows up in an emergency. And so if we focus on that as our goal of actual public safety, then we're not beholden to one tool. We make robust investments in what we know actually keeps people safe. And so we can look around the state for other examples of people moving in this direction, right? The Los Angeles Police Department Union recently proposed shifting 27 types of 911 calls from police response. And they're like on the record saying police officers are sent on too many calls that are better suited for unarmed service providers. Like that was Craig Lally, who is the president of the LAPD union. And so in 2018, when the campaign for the Measure U tax was promised to communities for things like inclusive economic development and arts and housing, which are all known to be preventive in terms of crime and violence, I was on board with that because I thought, okay, the existing money is going to the status quo, but this new money could be spent in some innovative ways. And then unfortunately, it went also to the ways it was always going, which was to police. And that was a broken promise to our community. And I really feel strongly that we owe it to our community to rebuild trust by righting that wrong. And so that means that we should invest in the things that are working. And so I am not a pro-crime candidate. I am a pro-public safety candidate. And I recognize that that does not necessarily mean being pro-police and giving all the money to police because they are ill-equipped by their own admission. I mean, LAPD is the largest police union in the state. And they're saying, here's 27 calls that we should not be on. Right. So anything you're saying less than that is you just not keeping up with the times. Right?
Everyone's in agreement on that shit. And like, yet, you know, they harp at you are defund.
I'm like, no, I'm saying, let's not lie to people. Because the business community feels lied to, because they funded Measure U, because they thought it was going to inclusive economic development and it didn't. Because the community feels lied to, because they thought it was going to arts and housing and it didn't, and they feel lied to. I'm saying a functional government doesn't lie to its people repeatedly, because that breaks trust. A functional government doesn't lie to its unhoused neighbors repeatedly, because that breaks trust. And that makes it harder to do things. We just got 350 tiny homes at Cal Expo, and people are saying, I don't want to go there because I'm worried that you're going to have some draconian rules for me about curfews and sobriety and all of that. And listen, I'm going to be really clear about this. If sobriety was required for people to get a mortgage, I don't know anybody who would be housed. Because everybody I know who has not had a substance use issue has consumed alcohol, since Prop 64 was passed, consumed marijuana. Like, y'all aren't sober. And so the idea that we would require of poor people who have more stressors in their lives, sobriety that we don't require of
less access to mental health care,
to drugs,
like mental health drugs. Yeah.
It's ultimately ridiculous.
Right.
And so I don't play into those stereotypes because I know people who are securely housed, who have plenty of money, and who cannot make it through a tough day without having a drink at the end of the day. And we're going to then judge our unhoused neighbors who are having to contend with all matter of the elements and rats and vermin and everything else to all a standard of sobriety that you can't meet in your wonderful multi-$1,000 home. Like, bye, Felicia.
Okay. Yes, she said bye, Felicia.
I'm gonna, final episode flow bingo. I think we're getting close to a winner here.
Yeah, really.
I'm gonna put my.
I mean, I want to have plain talk with our, like, for the long form of people who get to know me, because I'm gonna be caught in sound bites for most of this campaign.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I want to be able to be on the record as saying, like, some of these things that we've been doing and these ways of being are utterly ridiculous if you just confront them on their face.
I mean, this is why I'm asking you these questions like this today, right? Yeah. I'm going to put my Katie Grimes hat back on.
Please. Welcome, Katie.
I neither like nor appreciate your response. I'm going to have to check back in with my colleagues at the Heritage Foundation before I come up with a follow-up question. And I will cede the floor to my colleague Shannon. Shannon, we probably have 2 brief questions for brief answers left. So if you have one
lightning
brief
round.
question, yeah.
Oh God, I'm not ready. Sorry, I'm not ready for this because I wasn't expecting us to keep going.
Okay. Well, I have a final question. This could be.
Let's do a final question.
Okay. Also adversarial. Dr. Flo.
They all should be.
It's well known that Keira Knightley has a singular stunning look, and that no other celebrity on earth really looks like her. And to imply
Natalie Portman, Winona Ryder, I stand by
strikes
this.
me as
if you don't want to vote for me because I think all 3 of these women look the same, then I'm sorry, I don't want your
My
vote.
question is to you is why do we all look alike to you?
Keira Knightley,
The whites,
Winona Ryder.
I mean, that's the only reason
Natalie
you could come up with for why she would look like anyone else.
They look so close. They look so much alike, Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley, that they were actually each other's like stunt doubles or whatever in Star Wars.
They do look
like,
very similar.
Please don't gaslight me.
I don't know why I brought this up. I can't vote for you anymore.
Don't gaslight me into believing that these are 3 different people. They're the same person.
I'm with Flo.
This is racist.
They're the same person. At least the Chris's in Hollywood, the Evans and the Hollingsworth and the Hemsworth and all of them, at least they look different. Like, these 3 people have different names, but they have the same face.
Absolutely not. Keira Knightley has better lips.
Okay, you're
better actress.
But they're the same lips as Natalie Portman.
She can't punch.
And also Winona Ryder. I could swap any of them into the Heathers, an 80s movie. Shout out to my people who know, and nobody would know the difference.
This is just
I could swap any of them into Star Wars and nobody would know, because literally Natalie Portman's mom couldn't tell her, or was it Keira Knightley's? One of their moms couldn't tell the other from the other. And as a person who my mother
making
has,
shit up. Flo,
No,
you're losing the public's
seriously.
trust.
My mother has tried to pick up the wrong Black woman from the airport multiple times because she thinks my hair changes all the time and she doesn't actually know what I look like. So the bar is low.
What?
Oh my God.
What I look like. The bar is low for like mothers recognizing their children. That having been said, I still want to enter into evidence the fact that one of their mothers couldn't tell the other from her own child. And I feel like evolution should just like make you able to like identify the product of your loins. Like that feels like a thing that we should do. I don't know.
Product of your, as your comms rep, never say that again on the trail. The product,
I'm just saying, like,
product of your loins.
Something like evolutionary baked in where you're like, that one's mine, because my mom does not have that. She's like, that one's mine. And I'm like, hi, Mom, I'm right here. And she's like, oh, I was like, I pick that woman up. Sorry.
Oh, that's good.
My mom calls me the many faces of Eve.
Well, I guess we'll never reach a conclusion on that debate. And folks, you'll just have to determine if that will sway your vote or not.
If that's disqualifying, I'm okay. Like, I have to stand on principle that I'm okay with losing your vote if you don't accept that Keira Knightley, Winona Ryder, and Natalie Portman are the same person.
Winona Ryder looks nothing like either of those two.
She is just older than them, but they're all the same person.
No, she looks nothing like those two.
She looks like Natalie Portman. Listen, I'm not going down this rabbit hole with you anymore. Skylar has a lot of work to do.
We've had some Tahoe trips where we're just yelling at each other in the car over this. Yeah.
Yes. We've been stuck on the side of the road for 8 hours, and I'm just like, and you're like, they're not. Keira Knightley is so much hotter than the rest of them, and I'm like,
oh, I forgot about that. Trapped on.
They are the same person.
Yes. Snow House.
No house. Anyway, what, Shannon?
We got to end this show. We're almost 2 hours in. Skylar's gonna have a shit fit.
He's gonna murder us.
He's got to edit this.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like the longest show ever. And
I'm sorry.
Listen,
it's a long goodbye. goodbye. That's what we're gonna call it. We're gonna call this
It
one
is a long goodbye. That's true. We'll call
And
it the
for
long goodbye.
SEO purposes, we will not. But yeah, totally.
Oh, we can't.
Search engine
because
optimization.
It'll pop up some things that we don't want it to pop
Well, I
up.
definitely want to have your name in. We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Maybe we'll
fine.
put it in there somewhere. But Flo, I don't know. I mean, we love you. It's I don't know. It's obviously not goodbye. I've been talking to you way too much the last few weeks.
I haven't been talking to you enough, so
So slide in my DMs.
Ooh,
okay.
Listen. Mm.
there we go.
Hey.
It's a whole new voices. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll be back on. I will say that we are 3 for 3 as far as the city council dais goes. If you've been on the show, you are now on the city council dais. My Katie and Katie. So knock on wood for you, Flo. I think we got some Flomentum.
I love
we
that.
do have some Flomenta.
And folks, or doctor, if folks want to get involved, how do they find you? What do they do?
Flowformayor.com.
Flowformayor.com. You can contribute, you can donate, you can put down monthly donations, you can sign up to volunteer, you can sign up for the email list. Things are going to start moving. They're going to start moving fast. And this is a people-powered campaign. So we need each and every one of you.
Yes, we do.
Flowformayor.com. Should we call it?
Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. Well, what is there to say even?
Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
And vote for Flo.
And vote for
Oh.
hashtag Spartan Spuzzle.
Martin Stussle.
Hashtag Spontan Spuzzle.
Okay. Bye-bye.